We are live with the firm of Jeff and Son to discuss Homicide Life on the Streets episode.
It is episode 6, 3 Men and Adena.
And we will remind the audience that the network interfered and that if you find it anywhere else, it will say episode 5. But this is the real episode 6.
So it was the 6th one made, but it was actually the 5th one aired because they stuck the 3rd one at the end. But anyway, 3 Men and Adena. I talked before in one of the previous videos, and I don't remember which one. But I said that there was an episode that really hooked me on Homicide. You know, that I was interested and it was all right before that, but there was, you know, the episode that really got me, and this was that episode. So, you know, to me, it's like fantastic TV. So I'm gonna do the summary first, and then I'll get to all that stuff and hear what Ben has to say about it. So the plot summary: Bayliss and Pimbleton prepare to interview Risley Tucker, an elderly Araber. And they discussed, because Ben asked me last time about what an Araber is, and they discussed that in the episode, of course, so anyone who was unfamiliar with it. Bayliss is convinced Tucker murdered 11-year-old Adena Watson. Pimbleton is less confident. Since they already have interviewed Tucker multiple times, the court will not allow him to be bothered anymore if he does not confess after this interview, and the detectives have only 12 hours to elicit a confession before Tucker walks free. Pimbleton starts off acting friendly, while Bayliss, who has taken the Watson case very personally, is more aggressive. Adena used to work for Tucker, taking care of his horse. Pimbleton brings up Tucker's alcoholism, but Tucker said he gave up drinking because he used to black out, insisting he hasn't had a drink in 16 months. Tucker also insists he hadn't seen Adena for 3 days before she died, but Bayliss shows him she had soot on her skirt that matched soot from Tucker's barn, indicating she was there the day she was killed. During a moment of anger, Bayliss nearly presses Tucker's face against a hot pipe on the wall, but Pimbleton stops him. Tucker still angrily insists he did not kill her, and he agrees to submit to a polygraph test. When Bayliss leaves, Pimbleton speaks to Tucker in a soft and comforting tone, trying to get Tucker to trust him. Pimbleton suggests Tucker had a drink and blacked out the night he killed Adena, and he seems close to getting a confession before Tucker once again insists he is innocent. With 4 hours left before the deadline, Bayliss returns and says Tucker failed the polygraph test. Bayliss and Pimbleton then aggressively team up on Tucker, talking quickly and intimidating him with repeated questions. They bring up a previously dropped statutory rape charge against Tucker involving a 14-year-old girl, then suggest he attempted to have sex with Adena and killed her because she resisted. They confront Tucker with gruesome crime scene photos of Adena and ask him if he is sure he didn't kill her, to which a frightened and confused Tucker replies, "Not right now, I'm not." With less than an hour left and still without a confession, the detectives are exhausted and Tucker turns the table on them. He claims Pimbleton has the attitude of a man trying to distance himself from his African-American heritage because he is just ashamed to be black. Tucker also accuses Bayliss of hiding a dark side inside him that he was afraid to embrace. Eventually, Tucker admits he harbored pedophilic feelings for Adena and feels shame that the one great love of my life was an 11-year-old girl. He breaks down and cries, but still insists he did not kill her. The 12-hour time limit elapses, and the detectives fail to get a confession. Tucker is released, and Bayliss is miserable he was unable to close the case. Pimbleton, who has a new respect for Bayliss, tries to comfort him by saying he is now convinced Tucker is the killer, but Bayliss is no longer so sure. 3 Men and Adena was directed by Martin Campbell and written by Tom Fontana, the executive producer of Homicide. And yeah, I'll get into the rest of this, but and Morgan and I both have plenty of things we could say about this, but Ben, we'll let you say your first impression and what you thought of this.
First thing, when you said, I'm not sure Pimbleton stopped Bayliss from putting his face against the pipe.
He did, yeah. I mean, he might have stopped anyway, but Pimbleton did
yeah, that's what I thought.
So he made sure that he stopped.
Yeah, because I thought Bayliss was sort of... Okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
He was already letting go of him, but Pimbleton pulled him back to make sure.
Yeah. One thing is that the performance by the suspect, Tucker, the actor playing him, is so good. Was he nominated for an Emmy for that performance?
I don't believe so, because I think they would have mentioned that in the production notes if he was.
But it's the sort of thing that would be nominated, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. The writer of this episode, Tom Fontana, was nominated and won the writing Emmy for this episode that year. So this is the Emmy-winning drama episode of that year. So they're the only one. This is ironic. There's only one person in the regular cast that actually won an Emmy award for Homicide, and that was Andre Braugher. And it wasn't until much later. It wasn't in the first season, but
Right.
there were writing and directing Emmys earlier and this was the first one. Was actually there were two that first year. One was Barry Levinson for directing Gone for Good, the very first episode, and the other one was Tom Fontana for writing this episode.
And what makes
Moses
this?
Gunn, Moses Gunn's the name of the actor who played Risley Tucker, and yeah, he did a fabulous job, and that was actually his last role before his death.
How old was he when he did the part?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to look that up too, which conveniently I have a way to do that because I have the
why are you doing that? I'll talk about the ending of this episode is quite different. This shows you this series is quite different from other series in the genre. Because the ending is, it's not the good guys win all the while. It's
and the various. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and also apparently this case was based on a real life event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was in the book. This Adena Watson case was adapted from something in the book.
The real girl was named Latanya Wallace. Yeah.
Right. I particularly liked the bit where Tucker didn't want to hear what Adena wrote in her diary.
Mm-hmm.
And because he was so, I like the psychology of that, because he loved her so much that he didn't want to know what was written in the diary.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's part of the emotional roller coaster of this because it goes all over the place with, leading the audience the whole time. Like, how much can you believe of what he said? Is he telling the truth about everything? Obviously not, because he changes parts of his story.
Yeah.
But does that mean that he's lying about the critical part about what he did? So that's what I love about it, is that it's all left up to the audience to decide what's true and what isn't, because they never come down and say, and they tell you facts, but they don't ever tell you, what happened in terms of what at the actual crime, what happened with him, and so everything he says, it's like it leaves it open to interpretation. Is he crazy? Is he a really good actor? Is he actually stone cold, mean, and the whole thing, he's just a criminal mastermind, in terms of pulling it off? Or does he believe everything he says, but he's off in the head, and he tells the story about what he did in New York City in the restaurant,
that was good.
About how he spit in the face of the maitre d' and then when it was a fight. And so he's obviously shown, he can have these bouts of anger. And so Pembleton's kind of going towards the did you drink, and then you lost track of what you were doing. That seems like it could be a realistic angle there. That could have been indeed what happened, and that he really did black out and he doesn't remember. And then the parts when he says, "I'm not sure right now," and when he talks about, how much he loved her, but when he keeps saying, "I don't remember," and the part that really got me is when they showed him the tests about the soot, being, that was the point at which he seems the most genuinely surprised by anything else they said. He seems, because he says, "How can that be?" Because that's the point which it almost is like he's thrown off his game a little bit, of just repeatedly saying, "I didn't do it." And so seeing that made me sort of think that probably was the most realistic thing, is that he really did do it, but he really doesn't remember doing it. That he did black out, and that he doesn't remember that happening. So when he's confronted with that, that's where he starts to doubt himself about whether or not he did it.
And also interpreted when they brought up the lie detector test, or really insincerity detector, that they lied about that, didn't they? The Bayliss said, "Oh, look, this test shows that you're a liar."
Well, yeah, they lied definitely. I mean, the part where he said like he's an expert and says it's like the strongest result he's ever. I mean, that was made up by Bayliss.
Yeah, because we saw the graph wasn't that high.
Yeah, but it did. I mean, I don't think there's any reason to believe that it completely didn't show you what he was saying. Yeah. It's just he exaggerated it for effect.
Yeah. Because that's a staple, isn't it, in the crime genre, where you will have a policeman say something that he doesn't know in order to get the criminal to confirm it.
Yeah, right. It's funny you mentioned that because
quite a lot.
Because in the notes I was talking about, it mentions that because it said that there were actually real police departments that used this episode to train detectives or police officers on interrogations. So that's how spot on this episode was, that it wasn't just, oh, this is a great drama, because it is, but it's actually educational to police officers to show them that, say, here, look at these techniques that they use.
But how much of that itself was in the book, though?
Quite a bit of it. What's that? Yeah, quite a bit. If it goes into that, now they got the idea of doing the episode that way, where the entire thing took place in the box, because when they watched Pimbleton and Bayliss together in the first episode, Barry Levinson and Tom Fontana were talking to each other, and Barry said, we could do a whole episode with just these two guys. They're good. And they said Andre Brower and Kyle Secor, they were so effective that we could do an entire episode just those two in the box with a suspect. And so that's how they got the idea to actually write the episode that way. But the part, because you talked about, how much was in there, the real life interaction in the transcript of the interrogation of the suspect, it says the scene when Tucker admits for a moment he's not sure in his own mind that he didn't commit the murder. That was right out of there, and Fontana said it was so chilling. I was like, oh man, how do you get there? So the dialogue, the artistic license they took with it was setting up exactly how they got to that point. But because he read the actual transcript of the interrogation, but it's not like word for word. I mean, they didn't have him say all the stuff, but I think you can kind of tell where it switches to. I haven't read the book, like I said, but from the lines that were from there, because when Pimbleton and Bayliss, they start they don't seem to, if they discussed exactly what they were going to say, they don't show that scene. So you're left to assume that they sort of just start riffing and go with it. And so they start playing off each other where it's kind of like they know what the other one's going to say. You could say, part of that maybe with just natural camaraderie that they're developing, but at the same time, it couldn't be that coordinated if they hadn't talked about it a little bit beforehand. And so that's why I'm thinking that probably is what is the lines that actually came out of the transcript, even though I don't know that. I'm just guessing about that.
Oh, see, one of the things is that if you... I got your point. Is that if you ever see in a drama, folks, where someone outlines the plan, then you know the plan's going to go wrong. Because otherwise it would be boring. Yeah. Otherwise it would be boring just to have it go to plan.
But this was the episode that, the creator said that this was where they really thought things, it set it apart from other cop shows like we talked about before, where they said, even if another show had dared to do the whole episode in the box thing, they would have got the confession. And the network actually pressured them to get the confession because they want their happy ending. They're like, you can string them along for a few episodes, but then you need to, you have this intense scene, but then they get them because that way the audience is satisfied. And because the real case was never solved, Fontana insisted that the Watson case and Homicide remain unsolved as well, despite pressure from NBC for a more satisfying conclusion. Fontana said, quote, "We never solved it because we felt it would be a disservice to the real girl to have this fake TV solution, because it is not okay that she died, that no one took responsibility," unquote. So he basically said, well, no, we're not going to do. So it served the purpose in both ways. One, in not being the cop out for the real girl in real life, but also from the sense of the show, because it was a powerful, hit you in the stomach moment of they still don't get it. And the audience is sitting there just like stunned, because most people watching this are thinking they're going to get. There's all these moments they set up where you're thinking, well, this must be where it happened. And then they still don't. And it's just gut wrenching. You know, that it ends. And he's sitting there, you know, just free to go, and he's playing with the television and what, you know, and it's like this, it's just like it reaches out and just turns the knife in your stomach a little more. Like, take that. And that's reality. That's what reality does sometimes. And so that's what's awesome about it, is it's just, like I said, this was the thing that grabbed me, where like, I'm like, wow, this is not, you know, like other shows. This is something new. This is something better. I got to see what these guys do next. And that was there's another episode in the second season that, if I was at all starting to drift in that feeling, you know, brought me right back, because it and again, I won't go into detail on that for the future episode, but it introduced certain elements that they hadn't really covered before that were satisfying in a way that I was like, okay, wow, they're really going to even cover things from that angle too. So it was, you know, I would say probably as I think about the series as a whole, 3 Men and Adena is probably either my second or third favorite episode. I mean, it's right up there among the very best that they did.
It shows again, though, the importance of look. From the writer's point of view, that there was a case in the original book that was unsolved, that enabled them to say to the network, look, in the book, it wasn't solved. That then enabled them to going forward, that they could have all of these cases that didn't have an happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows you how, yes, there's a lot of talent involved, but there's also a little bit of luck.
Well, and obviously, you know, you could say luck, but you could also say that in a way it was planned, in the sense that Barry Levinson, when he acquired the rights to make, he actually originally was going to do it as a movie, because, you know, Levinson was a movie director. But then he actually, when he started the process, he actually got so engrossed in the book and the cases that he said, this needs to be more than just one movie, because there's so much material here. This needs to be a series, at least a mini-series. And that's actually, I think he pitched it originally as being a mini-series. And then again, it kept being stretched, where he was like, you know, I think we can actually turn this into a weekly series that keeps going. And that's what they ended up doing. And he trusted Tom Fontana to be the guy that pretty much turned it into, you know, something that could work that way. In this notes, there's a quote from Andre Braugher. He says, in essence, we were doing a play. We were doing a drama in which it was just as dangerous in a certain way as if we were on stage and it was happening right there before our very eyes. And we got a lot of very interesting, spontaneous human emotion by filming it that way, and I loved it. I absolutely adored it. Martin Campbell, the director, said, spent 3 days of preparation on the box set, analyzing it from every angle to learn the feel of the room. Fontana comes from a playwriting background, and 3 Men and Adena involves long lengths of dialogue in a single setting, much like a play. The actors shot about 14 pages of dialogue each day and had a very small amount of rehearsal time before shooting. According to Fontana, Campbell never shot a scene from the same angle twice, so the entire hour keeps changing the point of view of the camera so that you never get tired of being in that room. While filming the episode, Campbell would shoot single scenes with multiple pages of long dialogue, then film the scene again from another angle. Brower said the experience felt more like staging a play than shooting a television episode, and allowed for a feeling of spontaneous human emotion in the performances. I just read that quote. Although the dialogue in the final episode did not stray from the original script, Fontana said Campbell and the actors came up with the rhythm and pacing of the performances largely on their own, particularly during the fast-paced questions when Pendleton and Bayliss team up on Tucker.
Yeah, I thought that was really well done. Another part, which I think we may have fairly skipped when this was growing up, when they were like setting down papers, or maybe different episode. But anyway, they were like working together. They're like just saying that you just showed them a top view of their hands moving, and it showed them like moving papers around and organizing the table in front of them, and it was just so coordinated that just kind of set the mood for what they were, doing, and it continued to. At times, it seemed like they were kind of apart, but at the same time, they weren't really going against each other. When Pimbleton is talking about the guy being an Araber, and the other guy's like, "So, would you last see Adena?" That kind of thing. He's like going actually trying to go for that, but they're not working against each other. They're kind of just trying to take the guy in two directions.
Yeah.
And then when they come back together and they're actually fast-paced questioning him, they're like so on point, with the coordination. It's really cool.
Yeah, the only part where they really actually seemed antagonistic is the part where Bayliss actually tells him to shut up because he starts, again, thinking that he needs to steer it a little bit differently from where Bayliss is going.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great moment because Pimbleton just goes, "Don't ever tell me to shut up." So again, it's like he's going about it in his way, but he's not trying to step on Bayliss for the most part. It's only when Bayliss gets up in his face about, you're the one who's taking this off track that Pimbleton feels the need to respond to that. But but other than that, yeah, they worked well together, which is why this was like basically the sort of the coming of age moment for them as a partnership. Obviously, they'll have some more ups and downs over the years, but this was sort of the first point at which they really gelled, and really that you saw from Pimbleton that he respected Bayliss, because up to that point he had kind of been like, this guy's no good, he's a lousy detective, he's not going to solve the case, let me have it, and at that point, through that he actually, you get, and maybe I'm reading something in, but it seems to me that you come off thinking like Bayliss did earn Pimbleton's respect from what he did in there, that he came out actually impressed with Bayliss's skills as a interrogator, or whatever you want to call it.
There was a little bit of that though in the previous episode where it was Pembleton that goes up to Bayliss and says that he was right about the bar.
Yeah.
And the lab results came back.
Yeah, I mean, from that point, he was like, okay, maybe he's got something here, but there's still plenty of ways where Bayliss could have screwed it up in the box, where Pimbleton still would have been shaking his head like, okay, this kid's not really going to make it, and instead, you can tell he comes out of it thinking, okay, this might actually work, and as when G tells him, he's your partner, accept that, at that point, it's kind of like he doesn't. Up to that point, he had argued every time, and G had told him about, having a partner, whether it was Bayliss or Felton or whoever. And that's the first time where he tells him accept it, and he does accept it.
Well, one thing is, when they're in the box, don't they record the interrogations?
I think he was audio recording it. Yeah.
So
stop the tape.
So the stuff about with the violence, like putting his face near the pipe, then I thought, yeah.
I was just waiting for you to finish your sentence.
Oh yeah, I was wondering if Pembleton might have come in and said, "Hey, you could just blow the whole thing by roughing him up too much. This thing's being recorded."
Yeah, and that's the interesting, another choice in terms of you don't know like how long, what stuff from the script was cut for time, whether they did have a scene, on the other outside of the box where they were talking about anything, because they don't actually show any discussion between the two of them outside of the box in this episode. So you kind of left, to not know whether they had any other discussions or whether that really was all they did.
Because it would be the switch from the first episode where Bayliss is having a go at Pembleton for what Bayliss thought was tricking the suspect into signing a confession.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, in the very first episode when they bring the guy in and he's having him like initial the waiver of rights thing, and Bayliss says the thing about you basically he wanted a lawyer and you didn't get him.
Yeah.
But of course, as soon as he starts to say that, Pendleton like slams the table and says, "Oh, if you want a lawyer, I'll get you a lawyer, but here's why you don't want one." That of course is right out of every police textbook in terms of they do whatever they can to say, "Oh yeah, you've got the right to this." But yeah, if you do that, everything's going to go terribly for you. If you just tell me what happened, then I'll take care of it, because that way they can close the case and not involve the lawyers until it actually is going to court, and then it's not the detective's problem anymore, other than being called to testify or whatever. But at that point, the case is closed as far as their part of it goes. Okay, I don't have a whole lot of time left, so I'm going to read this one last part on this.
Can I just do the joke that was in there?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, there's a bit where Crissetti and Lewis are in the toilets, and Crissetti says to Lewis in the next stall, "Have you got any toilet paper in there?" Lewis says no, and then Crissetti says, "You got 5 ones for a 5?"
Mm-hmm. I liked the little bits that because it was basically like anything that was not in the box was sort of comic relief moment in this episode. And there weren't very many, but it was like at the very beginning, and then that part there was like a few little breaks of the other stuff that was going on, and it's like everything else is just super intense. So you had those little moments like that, then somebody saying, is it going ducky in there or whatever, and then when they come out, when Bayliss yells about the polygraph and Howard says something tells me it's not so ducky.
Right.
Anyway, this says the fact that Tucker goes free upholds a common theme in Homicide: Life on the Street. The life is not always fair, and that criminals sometimes get away with their crimes. A conviction that often put the show's producers at odds with NBC executives. Fontana deliberately wrote the script so it would remain ambiguous whether Tucker committed the murder or not. He wanted the character to have a genuine feeling of love for Adena Watson, but the strong feelings do not specifically mean he killed the girl. Brower praised Fontana for creating such a three-dimensional character in Tucker and said, quote, "Fontana's genius is that we are never quite certain as to what it is we have on our hands." Unquote. Fontana also wanted Pendleton and Bayliss to have different interpretations of the same interrogation. Bayliss begins the interview convinced of the man's guilt and becomes uncertain by the end, and Pendleton has the opposite experience. Multiple police departments have requested copies of 3 Men and Adena for use in training sessions due to its accurate portrayal of the intricacies of the police interrogation process. The interrogation included several police tactics not typically featured in television dramas, including, as you pointed out, the presentation of false evidence in an attempt to get a confession. Okay, it says an original broadcast was March 3rd, 1993, was watched by 7.08 million households. That was actually it was higher rating than the previous episode, but it was still considered a disappointment in terms of the ratings because it was still beaten by the stuff on the other networks. As far as critical reviews, it got tons of great ones. It's described as one of the classic episodes of Homicide. 3 Men and Adena ranked number 74 on an Entertainment Weekly list of the 100 greatest television moments, and number 15 among the top television moments from the 1990s. It was identified by the Baltimore Sun as one of the 10 best episodes of the series. David B.N. Cully of the New York Daily News said the episode remains one of TV's best drama hours ever, one of the most powerful primetime hours ever. Andre Braugher's performance, a tour de police force. Yeah, good pun. Alex Strahan of the Vancouver Sun described 3 Men and Adena as one of Homicide's finest moments. He called the episode claustrophobic, cynical, and ultimately painful, and particularly praised the performances of Brower and Secor and the fact that it was not a happy ending. David P. Callett, writer of the Homicide: Life on the Street unofficial companion, described the episode as an astonishing tour de force of writing and acting that demonstrates all of Homicide's best qualities. Also praised the chemistry between Brower and Secor, particularly when they found a common voice during the interrogation. And anyway, lots of praise heaped on it by lots of people. And like I said, Tom Fontana won the Emmy Award for Outstanding Writer writing for drama series for his script. It was one of 2 Emmys Homicide received during the 45th Primetime Emmy Award season, with Barry Levinson also winning an Emmy for Outstanding Directing for the episode Gone for Good. So that's all from that.
Right.
But yeah,
so
like I said before, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say the next episode we're going to be, like, tomorrow we'll be reviewing a Blake 7 episode, and then the next day we'll be doing a Homicide episode. Rather than doing 2 each night, we'll just be doing 1. And then we can do more slides.
Especially because when Ben takes like 2.5 hours to watch a 45-minute show. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
I wanted to say the ending with the guy they're trying to get confession out of, where he's sitting in the break room watching the TV, and he's not really saying much, and it's just kind of like contemplative, like they're just letting it sink in, everything that happened in the episode. It was really intense, and it got fast-paced, and then they just kind of like let it simmer at the end there. Let you watch the guy just kind of, he wasn't like, ooh, I got out of there. He wasn't like doing anything like that. He was just kind of melancholy.
And I like the way they did it, where at the very beginning of the episode, Bayliss is sitting in the same seat watching the TV, and then they end it with Tucker doing the same thing, basically, except he gets up and changes the channel.
Now, what he was watching on the screen, was it something about, because it seemed to be a news report involving another bit of crime. What exactly was he watching?
Other homicide. That's what the homicide usually alludes to. More homicide always happening.
Yeah, it was a cooking show, and then he changed it to something that looked like some kind of police or ambulance thing. What I thought of, and I watched that, and I still love it. It's just as effective the way it is. But I thought it would add that little extra creepy touch if he had changed the channel to like some kid show, like he turns it to like Sesame Street or something, and he's watching like a little girl play or something. Then it would have had like more.
That'd be a little extra step there.
Yeah, just go ahead and stick you again, with that. But instead, it still achieves a success in that, because then it's more like just mundane. Like he's just kind of changing the channel to whatever happens to be on there. It doesn't really matter what it is. It just happens to be whatever he turned it to, and it's just, he's just going back to his life because, into that. So
I think if you watched it and it was a kid on screen, it might have been like an extra step too far for the network. Yeah,
I don't know, because if all he did was watch it, then you can't really say that the content itself was any worse. It's just sort of an extra little, like I said, just a little stick you at the end with it. But that definitely a bold choice to do the episode this way, and I think it's pulled off greatly. And the people that want to just watch shows that are like shoot 'em up car chases and stuff, obviously a show like that is not going to be something that's probably going to hold their attention. But
so there was a time that Junior bump, and I shoot a car chase at the same time.
Hey, you can't. Don't tell him in advance what's going to happen. Well, I already told him that there will be some car chases and shooting. Obviously, that.
Well, but it is sudden when it happens, and you don't necessarily expect it because it doesn't really tie into anything else previously. So
but
it's like, okay.
Anyway, but the point is, a show like this one that we're talking about is very different than that, and experimental at the time.
It's kind of better.
And it just was great from start to finish. Very intense, and it goes by really fast. It doesn't seem like it's the whole length of an episode, even though in the show it's like the time is dragging by, but it doesn't feel that way because you're just gripped by everything that's happening. So
I felt them feeling that.
Well, yeah. But it's a contrast to like what I was saying earlier about I have to care about the characters and have an emotional investment. This is a great example of the contrast between, the Blake 7 episode and this. And I'm not making a comment about the series as a whole when I say that, and I'm not dissing Blake 7. All I'm saying is that in this, it was like I'm sitting there just, hanging on every word, as opposed to being like, all right, here come the crazy Ewoks destroying everything. Woohoo for them.
Well, I mean, it was more for NTs, that episode, with NTs and NFs on the web.
But, I think,
Did you enjoy watching the Ewoks come in and destroy everything? Was that a critical moment for you in the episode?
Did you hear his question?
Oh, no, what did you say? Did I enjoy it? No.
He said you didn't enjoy it, okay.
No.
Because you said it was for NTs, so...
Oh, it's just like all the ideas and all what you described as weirdness. NTs and NFs.
Notice that there's just some Ewoks destroying everything and the plot doesn't really make too much sense?
Pardon? I didn't quite get all your comments.
You're too far away for him to hear you.
I said, so you're supposed to be too distracted by all the ideas to notice that the plot doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, because we sort of noticed that in a lot of Doctor Who's that the plots don't. But you see, I didn't really watch the whole episode because...
Yeah, I wouldn't even say the plot didn't make sense. It just wasn't that interesting. But anyway, I only brought that up just to contrast that something like this, to me, it's like... they're not in the same league.
No, they're completely different genres. Yeah,
but in terms of just being like edge of your seat television, and watching just everything come together, and it's like, I'm not gonna say that there couldn't be, like, if I rewatched certain like 7 episodes, I might not, it's possible I might enjoy them more, or one side scene more, I might care about the characters more, and then it would make more of an impact on me. All that's possible. But I mean, it's doubtful. No matter how many times I watch weirdos versus Ewoks with slimy head and the guy, no matter how many times I watch that, I'm not really going to care about any of those characters. So.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the nature of the thing. It's a science fiction thingy with ideas rather than.
But you can still do science fiction with characters that are compelling, though. I mean, we talk about Doctor Who. There's lots of Doctor Who's that have compelling characters, and not necessarily quite at the level that 3 Men and Adena did, but there's certainly Doctor Who episodes that have that intensity and drama and compelling stuff going on back and forth, and there's a real like roller coaster ride of the story, and they're not. Some of them are slower paced, but there's still plenty of examples of that. So I don't think just because something is science fiction means you can't achieve that.
Oh no, they did that when they remade Battlestar Galactica Mark II. Because they made it.
I'll take your word for that because I haven't seen that, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway,
well, we could review that in future.
Maybe, who knows? I got a lot of stuff to do in the next few months. But,
right.
Like Devin, it seems like the actors. I've seen a lot of older sci-fi British stuff that I thought was just bad because, like, the acting seemed ridiculous as well as the plot, as well as the bad fighting. And this show just has the bad fighting part of that. But the actual characters and the actors seem like they're actually good at acting. Like, I don't come out of it thinking, okay, that was delivered stupid.
Yeah, I agree. I basically buy, pretty much everybody they've cast, I can buy them as the character. Definitely the main cast, but even, most of the guest characters,
They need to just do something with these actors.
We already talked about, the one guy that, the religious leader, or what do you want to call him, being just kind of over the top, so he's a little bit...
Yeah, Brian Blessed.
Yeah. But, he's even that, he wasn't a bad actor, it was just the way he did it was kind of like a little bit kind of melodrama-ish.
He's like that when he turns up. I won't say which story, but he's in season 22 of Doctor Who, Colin Baker's season.
All right.
Actually, no, it's the next one.
I gotta go.
The next season. Right, okay, so bye-bye from me, folks.
Yeah, thanks, everybody, for watching, and join us next time for A Dog and Pony Show. That'll be the next Homicide episode. So.
Yeah, but the next video we do will be Blake 7, then Dog and Pony.
Or it could be, elephants jumping out of cars. Who knows? We never know.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Bye. Yeah, bye-bye, folks.